Welcome to a new breed of golf live to get you ready for Labor Day weekend. I know it's been a long year for everybody, and yet there's still a lot of golf in front of you to play. You get that extra day on Monday, short week next week, so many things to look forward to, and football right around the corner. But it doesn't mean that golf isn't the most important thing in your day. It certainly is the most important thing in ours. Let me tell you a little bit about what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about some specialty shots, the shots that you probably aren't aware of, and how you can alter this club, alter your positioning to the club, how you're moving it in the motion to change some things, launch angles, spin rates, and things of that nature. I've got a sand wedge in my hand, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what we can do there as well. We're getting to some of your questions. Make sure you reach out to us, get those to us. We'll talk about anything. You want to talk driver, we can discuss that. Maybe talk a little bunker play. I know you don't see the sand around here, but the principles are going to be the same, and I can help you with that as well. Now, before we get to everything that we're doing, let me first introduce you to the men who are involved with getting this program up on the air. Let's introduce ourselves to. There you go. There's Greg Ducharme. He's sitting right there in the beautiful pink. Gibbsy, don't get shy on me now. There you go. Yep. Well done by you sporting the red, white, and blue today. It looks beautiful on you. So those are the guys that are getting the things done for us. And when you send those questions in, Greg's going to be able to ask that. The PGA Tour season has obviously ended. We're not going to be able to give you some updates. We can give you some updates on the club championship that's taking place that my wife is playing in, but I'm sure you probably don't want to know all that yet. So we'll let you know about that a little bit later. As well, a couple other announcements. We've got our blessed poker chip ball markers. We only have 5 colors left now. We've gone through the navies. So now we have we've got the purple there, lavender, if you're so inclined, black, red, blue, and green. So fun to be able to get those to you. $6 each. Very, very fun to have. And we've actually had a number of people who've ordered all colors, given away to friends. If you're interested in that, send that email to me at A New Breed of Golf. Also, too, by the way, another special offer from our friends at Pinned Golf, the Pinned Golf Rangefinder. One of the most unique, I have always thought that rangefinders are rangefinders. This is a little bit different. And this one here, you don't need to buy any batteries for. It's got a way to charge it just in the back here. You just open up this little door and it plugs right into a charger to go to the outlet. This gives you 65, a full charge, 65 rounds. Pick up all your targets. You don't have to worry about the batteries. But the special that we've got for you, again, you can get $30 off of a Pinned Golf rangefinder. Use the code BREED. What is it? BREED 30 or just BREED? Yeah, it's just BREED. So use just BREED and you get $30 off. Go over to pinnedgolf.com. Go over to Instagram. Make sure you follow them on Instagram. There's a lot of cool things that are going to be coming out in the future here with Pinned Golf, and excited to be a part of what they're doing. All right. Now, before we get to our specialty shots, what I want to do, we got an email this morning on the radio show on SiriusXM, A New Breed of Golf. And we got this individual who is a coach. I believe he's a high school coach. And he said, "Hey, Michael, can you help me out with my golf swing? I'm trying to figure out what's going on." I believe his handicap, Greg, is a 1.5. I think that's where he was. It was a 1.5. So really good player, 1.5 handicap, and hitting some balls here, and sent this over to me. Now, there's a couple of things here. Obviously, when we're looking at this, setup position looks really good. The only thing that I see here, and I'm going to just blow this up a little bit, and Jake, you'll forgive me for this, is it looks like he's almost stuffing his chin into his chest, and that can create some issues. You should be relaxed. And I know we all get nervous on the golf course. It's one of the reasons why our word of the day today is calm. You want to breathe, you want to relax, you want to feel comfortable out there. Nobody's going to harm you if you hit a bad shot. Well, then if that partner's harming, get a new partner. Nobody's going to get upset. You just go out there, you just do the best you can and keep trying and keep working on improving. Well, tension, which is what this looks like to me, cripples. And so what I want to see a little bit more of a relaxed address position. Okay. I want to see shoulders a little bit lower. I want to see chins up a little bit. I want to see some space in here so that when you set up, go ahead to a 5. Yeah, perfect. So when you set up, you're not stuffing your chin into, it's going to make things really difficult for you to move. So that's the first thing that I would see. And that's the first thing that I would address. Now, let me just draw a line here on that. And then I'm going to draw a line back here. These are two of the more important lines that I draw when I'm analyzing a golf swing. The shaft plane line, which is this line over here, and then the line on the rear, which is going to speak to hip depth. Hip depth to me is probably one of the more important things of in motion golf swing stuff, not pre-swing, but in motion swing stuff that I pay attention to. When you start to lose your hip depth, it affects tempo, it affects club path, it affects face, it affects the toe heel relationship as the club is coming through the strike. So there's a number of things that can be affected by it. And one of the reasons why you might be inconsistent with your distances is because the toe is going to get into the ground a little bit before the heel gets into the ground, and you might hit it out on the toe. It might be a little bit fat. You might catch it a little bit thin. There's all kinds of things that can happen from this. Now, a lot of different ways to do that. So when we look at this golf swing, Jake starts to take the club back. The club kind of moves a little bit to the inside, a little bit too much to the inside right here. And what he does is he falls a little bit towards the golf ball. So here's the front of his face. Here's the top of the head there. When he starts to go, see that little move that he makes, by the way? This is the move that says, this is the move that is, I'm a little bit tense, I'm a little bit tight, I'm a little bit in a bad position that doesn't allow me to move correctly. And so he shifts back this way. Some of you will shift this way, and some of you will shift this way. You'll shift back, and that's what Jake does here. So I draw the line there, but actually what happens is that he'll shift back to try to give himself a little bit of a freedom. And now he takes the club back, but now he starts dropping down, dropping down, dropping down. So if I redraw this line that I just put here, and right before he starts to go, I draw that line because that's where he should be. And then I'm going to draw that line. Now watch this. So now he starts to drop, 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 and move forward and move forward and move forward. And now what's happened is his rear has come off the hip line. So his hip hasn't gone back. His head and his body has dropped down, which is why the club has tracked inside and why it's across the line. Let's just go to a down the line shot here, Gibbsy. So if I'm here bent over so much, and then I go up this way, and then when I take the club back, I'm kind of in a lockdown. And so the club goes like this, and then it starts to work up this way, and it goes across the line like that. But more importantly, your chest is out over the ball, and your weight distribution is in the toes. You need to get trail heel weight. You have to get that in order for you to be able to deliver the club consistently from the inside, or at least down the line. So now all of a sudden he's moved a lot closer. And now what he starts to do is he starts to come down, he starts to uncoil, but he's decreased the space required from address to strike. So what do you do at that point? Well, he's going to stand up. And you can see how his hips are now working in. He's come way off the line there. And so when he comes into the hit, look at how much taller his hands are here than where he was at address. Now his head is at the same level, but it's closer to the strike line. And look at now how far off of the original hip line he is at impact. So now all of a sudden he's got no room, so the hands have to stand up, which means the toe drives into the ground. And now when the toe drives into the ground, now all of a sudden we don't know what kind of distance we're going to get. The face could be a little bit more closed. Toe could be a little bit down. We could get a strike off the toe, which is going to steal speed, but a little less loft is going to add ball speed, but we won't get the apex that we need. So all of a sudden now we lose spins, and all of a sudden this is kind of all over the place. And this is a 1.5. He's clearly got good hands, and he's a coach. So he's clearly a talented player. So that's a problem. So what we want to do is this. Let's go back to the address position. I would love to see you get a little bit taller here. And one of the things that you're going to see, and I'm going to move this up here. Look at how the toe is up in the air in that address position. So the toe is up in the air in the address position, but when we get to impact, because the shaft is so tall, now, the toe of the club is in the ground. And when the toe is in the ground, now all of a sudden we just don't know what kind of strike we're going to get, okay? So we go back into here, and then I'm going to drop this down. So right about there. Blow that up just a little bit to there. Okay, now, what I would say is this. When we get into an address position, so let me get a different club here. We'll go with the 5 Irene. So when I get into the address position, what you want to feel is in a down the line shot. Yeah, great, Gibbsy. So what you want to feel is that when you're tall like this, however much your rear goes back, that's how much your chest drops forward. So I don't want you to freeze this and go out here like this. If I didn't have this golf club, I'd be flat on my face, because you have to counterweight. This goes this way, then this goes this way. So when I go back, I like to see people just push their rear back. That's what I want you to do. I don't want you to feel like you're going to bend this way. I want you to just push your rear back. And when you push your rear back, now what happens is the center of the body, the mass, is just going to drop down. It just gets lower. So when this goes this way, the center of my mass, which is kind of right under on the outside part of my armpit, that is just going to drop straight down. If you look at where my armpit is right here, just on the outside part of the armpit, when I go back, it's just going to kind of go down. It's not going to go out, and it's not going to go back. It's pretty much just going to go down like this. So that goes like that. That drops out. And now my weight feels balanced in my feet. And then you're going to find, again, that the toe of the golf club there, and Gibbsy, I don't know if you can get a 7 of that, but if I get close up on that club head, so let's zoom right in. Yeah, great. So when I zoom, now the toe and the heel are at the same height. If I go back to a 1, if you would, if I go this way, now the toe is in the air. And then when I come through, because I haven't created any depth with my heel, now all of a sudden I'm coming up like this, and now the toe is in the ground. Okay? So address position, you got to focus on that. And then what will happen to you, and what I want you to pay attention to, is letting the club work away from you instead of letting the club work into you. So it works away from you, and as you're doing that, this is rotating, so you're sinking some weight into the heel. So club head's going to go away. Heel is going to be pressurized here by this hip rotation. And then when you're there, you're not going to have an around and up. You're going to have up and around. So up and around is going to give you the heel weight. It's going to give you the chest rotation. It's going to give you the shoulder rotation that's going to prevent your head from dropping down to that golf ball. So you get set up, drop into that posture, that can goes back, and then you go out, and then you go through. Now, that ball's not going to have a lot of curve, but it is going to go in the water. That's what's going to happen, okay? So, Jake, that's what I want you to do. And for all of you, I was asked this question on the show earlier on the radio show, what's the most important part of the golf swing? And to me, it's before you put the swing in motion. That address position might be the reason why those hands are trapping inside. That might be the reason why the club is going around so much at the start. That might be the reason why there's a shift. In fact, I know that's the reason why there's a shift at address, because you just locked your body down, okay? All right, let's get to some of these specialty shots. So first, there are many of you that when you hit chip shots, you're just off the green, you do what a lot of people are telling you to do, and that is you get set up, you let your hands get forward, you grip it like a normal swing, and then you just kind of let the club trap out and strike the golf ball. Now, that shot is and can be very, very effective. But if we look at some numbers here, what you're going to see, and Gibbsy, I'm going to need that down in the corner. If you look at some of the things that are going to take place here when I hit that shot, that flag, by the way, I had was at 15 yards. So that's about that's about 4 feet there with not a lot of thought. But look at that. That ball with this 9-iron flew about 5 yards and rolled out to about 17 yards. Okay. With spin, by the way, at about 1,600. So a tremendous amount of rollout for a 9-iron. Also, too, by the way, the apex was kind of low. The launch angle was at 16. Now, one of the specialty shots that I love to do, and this is a very simple one, is to hold this 9-iron like a putter. And when you hold it like a putter, what you create is a very soft shot, a very sort of dead, soft shot. So there's the shot that I just hit there. Now that almost rolled out the same distance. The first one was 16.6. This is 17.3. So not a tremendous amount of difference. But yet I landed that a couple of yards farther. The spin rate climbed up to 2,100. And if I do something even different than that, and I take this 9-iron and I creep even closer to it, so the only area of strike is in the toe, and now I putt this, and I caught that just a little bit on the toe. That was, a little bit thin. That was not a good one. I got to do that again. There you go. That was softer. So now what I get out of that one is the spin rate is kind of the same, but the launch angle goes higher, and it goes higher because I'm not creating an angle when I hold it like a putter. When you hold it like a golf club, like you're hitting your 9-iron fully, you're going to get a little bit of an angle, which is going to give you a little bit of a little less loft, and the ball and the club are going to meet. The club is not going to pass the ball. The club is going to come in, it's going to strike the ball, and then the ball is going to jump off. It's not going to pass underneath. But what does happen when you hit it off the toe is you get a softer shot. So that one there flew about 7.5 yards, rolled out to about 19. Now, that's less than a third, where before I was almost at 25%. I'm less than a third. So what I'm doing is I'm putting the ball and I'm letting the club glide underneath it. This one here, another one that's really, really good. Again, backspin number about 2,000, not tremendously different, but I get a little bit of a higher launch angle, which gets the ball to land at 5 and not roll out to 16, but roll out to 13. It's a softer shot. Now, why is it softer? Well, let me just show you this. Okay, I explained it to you, but I'll show it to you. When you hold the club and you go this way, typically what happens is shafts tend to lean forward, which de-lofts the club anyway. But the other thing that happens is that when you start to come down into this strike, hands don't move as far in the backswing, but they move a little bit more aggressively in the through swing. So when I hit that shot, again, similar number in the backspin, but all of a sudden my vertical launch goes down to 16.5. And when that drops down that much, now all of a sudden this golf ball is going to have a lot more run to it. And it has more run to it because, in effect, there's less loft on the face. When you grip it like a putter, you don't lean the shaft like you do when you hold it regularly. You tend to have the shaft standing straight up. And then when you get in close to it and the toe is in the ground, what will happen is that when the strike happens, it hits out on the toe, it steals some energy. Now, it's not a tremendous amount of rotation where the heel keeps going and the toe opens up. But what it does do is there's nothing that's really behind it on the toe. And so it's a little softer. And if you looked at club head speed, if I was looking at club head speed, you would probably see the club head speed with the putting type stroke be even a little faster, might be a mile and a half faster. And the reason why is because my arms have to travel a greater distance. In other words, when I hinge and I take it back, my hands might not even get outside of my thigh. But when I putt, now all of a sudden my hands are going to get way past that. That one was even softer. My hands are going to get way past my thigh. So I'm making a bigger swing with my arms, but not as big a swing with the 9-iron itself. The other thing that's going to happen is the club head is going to be moving much more along the ground with the putter grip and the putting stroke than the standard grip, with the club getting a little bit of hinge in the backswing. That's going to steepen the angle of attack, and that's going to make a lower strike and a little bit faster strike coming out of that. That ball will leave a little bit faster. And so one of the specialty shots that I love is taking this and just putting like that. And when you kind of do a little putt like that, all of a sudden, even though you might get less spin, what you're getting is a higher launch angle. And when you get the higher launch with the toe hit, now all of a sudden that ball is going to act like it'll be 1/3. For me, it's 1/3 with my 9-iron. So I'll get 4 yards of airtime, and then I'll get 12 yards total. So it's about 1/3 with my 9-iron. And the other thing that you can do if you want to even change that is take the face and open up the club face. Now, so I still have an open face. You're probably not doing this with a 9-iron, but it's a nice little specialty shot. So you open the face, and we do the same thing with a putting stroke. And now all of a sudden, I'm going to get a little bit more spin. That one jumps up to 24. And so I get the 24-degree launch, 2,400 RPMs of spin. And now that one isn't quite 50-50. Close, 13.5, 6. So almost 50-50, but not quite. And what happens is that when you open it up, you add a little loft and you hit it out on the toe, you gain a little softer strike. Now, you wouldn't do that typically with a 9-iron, but what you will do is you'll do it with a sand wedge. And the reason why you're going to do it with a sand wedge is because if I need to add a little bit of loft from my 9-iron, I can go to my pitching wedge. But with my sand wedge, I can't go anywhere. I don't have like this one. Here's my 58-degree wedge. It's my most lofted wedge. I don't have a 65. I don't have a 70. I got to make one. Well, the way you do this is you start to mess with the face getting a little bit open. You start to mess with hitting it off the toe. And again, very simple. Now, I do not grip this one with a putting grip, because what I want is I want to be able to manipulate this a little bit, and I want a little bit of leverage, frankly. So if I take this club and I set it on the toe the same way, I just grip it in a normal grip position, normal full swing position. Now I'm going to hit that shot, and all of a sudden it's very soft. That thing pops straight up into the air. That one there, the launch angle was 39 degrees. Okay. And again, I'm not even messing with other things. What I want you to see though, too, gives you, if you can go back up there, that one has about 4,900 RPMs of backspin over there on the right-hand side of the screen. In the middle of it, it says backspin, 4,900 RPMs of backspin. Now, this shot is tremendously effective on hard pin. If you have a shot where you have to hit it over, say, rough, bunker, whatever, and you're on hard pin, this is the easiest shot that you can hit, because it's a hard shot, but of all the hard shots, this is the easiest shot. Get that club, open it up, narrow up so get in here close, and then what you're going to do is you're going to do the exact same thing that you just did, throw the toe in the ground, and that's going to just glide along, again, pop straight up into the air. And if you want to add a little more spin to it, which is what I did there, what you're going to do is you make sure you drag this thing a little bit to the left-hand side, okay, or to your hip. So you open it up, you get in close, comes up like this, and then you just drag it over to the hip. You got to hit this on the toe, and you set the toe in the ground. When you set it in the ground, this club is going to glide along that hard pin. It's not going to get stuck in there. You won't hit it fat. It's just going to glide right along, because there's nothing to drive into the ground. There's no leading edge to dig into the ground. And by the way, you're not going to thin it. Don't worry about thinning it. Just trust yourself. Now, I want to show you one other little thing in this specialty. We got some questions that have come in. Okay, great. All right. So I want to show you one other thing in this specialty shot. when it comes to how we possibly create a little bit more loft, possibly create a little bit more spin. So we need to hit a higher shot. We're not in hard pan right now. We need to hit a little higher shot. We need to put a little spin on it. So let me tell you, first of all, how to create spin. What you want to try to do when you're spinning a golf ball, this being the ball, my hand being the club head, is we want to feel like the club head is going to go underneath the golf ball. It's actually going to go past the golf ball. And as it goes past the golf ball, now it hits in here and this thing starts to spin back like that. If I take this club head and I have it meet into the golf ball, it's going to jump off the face with not a lot of spin. I'll do this and I would guess this is going to be under 4,000 RPMs of spin here. So in here like this, and I hit that shot there. Yeah, so there you go. Let's go on up to the front here. And where we are is that shot all of a sudden leaves at 3,600 RPMs of backspin. Now, we want to create a little more backspin here. How do we create more backspin? Well, one of the things that we're going to do is I'm going to open up the club face. Easy way to do it. Add a little loft. You're going to get a little bit more backspin. One of the things that we're going to do is we're going to open up the club face as we go into the backswing. And then the other thing we're going to do is we're going to keep that loft that we have created through the motion on the club face. Okay? Now, this is where wrist angles and wrist positioning can assist you with spin. So if I want to get a little more spin, club face is going to get a little open. Yep. So I've got that just a little bit open, not tremendously, but just a little open. And then when I start to swing in here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to feel my wrist rotating to where the back of my hand is to the sky. My knuckles on my lead hand are to the sky. So I'm going to open this up like this, and then I'm going to keep the knuckles to the sky. Keep the back of that Titleist is going to be to the sky. So I'm going to set it to the sky and keep it to the sky. So watch what happens here. So now I hit that shot there. Come on up to the front. And now all of a sudden, remember all those numbers we were talking about, 3,600? Now all of a sudden I'm at 5,930. 5,930. So what did I get out of that shot? I got a very high launch, 38, well, call it 39 degrees. The ball carried 13, rolled out to 15. Say it rolled out to 16. Okay? But all of a sudden I got a very, very soft shot, setting a little bit of loft in the backswing and keeping the loft going through. Now, the other thing that's going to give you some spin is the club moving along the ground. So if I keep this, if I set this here and I drive this down into the ground, that launch angle there was again 38.8. So I'm going to open, I'm going to keep open, but I'm going to drive down. So now I hit that shot there. Now I got more spin, that's true, but the ball launched out a lot lower. So it's not as soft. It's a little bit more abrupt. And that's why it took off. It spun nicely, but it took off. Now, watch what happens when I do this. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to imagine that this club head is an airplane. And when it comes in, it's landing. So I want to feel this club head coming in and moving along the ground. And when it moves along the ground with the loft, all of a sudden it should be a very soft collision between the club head and the ground. And I should be able to get an even greater spin here. So, okay. So a little bit different, not greater spin, equal spin, higher launch, 39, call it 40 degrees there. So I got a 40-degree launch. So I lofted it. I even got more launch on that, which gave me a little bit of a softer shot. And now that thing landed at about 17.5, rolled out to about 20. So just round numbers. Let's just round everything up. 18 in the air, 20 total. So not a tremendous amount of rollout. So you have to appreciate how you can manipulate the club face and manipulate the club's interaction with the ground, or how the club is approaching the ground, and really feel like this club is moving along the ground. This is going to be incredibly effective. Oh, that was even softer there. So that one there had a launch of about 40. spin rate was at 55, call it 5,500, but a much softer shot because as that went through, I now got that launch angle to the 40s. And then when it lands, now it's really soft. That again rolled out about 9 feet. So not a tremendous amount of rollout, a very, very soft shot, and a shot that is what we call a specialty shot. The majority of the specialty shots that you're going to need are in the short game. And one of the things that I find so interesting is when you manipulate 6 irons, you start getting a lot of curve. When you manipulate wedges in short game, you get loft, you get spin, you get an understanding of how this club is going to react when it strikes the ball, rather how the ball is going to react when the club strikes it, and how that ball is going to stop or release. And it doesn't have a lot to do with curve as much as rollouts. Okay, really important to understand that manipulation. Don't be afraid of experimenting with putting stuff on the toe, putting a club head out on the toe, and then striking the ball out on the toe to soften some stuff. And also experiment with open up that club face, and then really feeling that wrist, that lead wrist, fanning the face open and then keeping that loft on there. And what I can tell you too is, by the way, what I showed you that last little bit is really, really effective in a bunker, incredibly effective in a bunker. Okay. So when you get into that bunker and you get a little bit wide with your knees and you do what you do, when the club starts to run away, make sure that you're adding some loft on there, keeping that so that wrist will get cupped, that Titleist thing will point to the sky. And as you start to do this, now when you come through and move it along the ground, you're going to get a whole lot of spin coming out of those bunkers. Okay. All right, Gregory.
Okay. The first one is from our friend Corey Holt. This morning on the range, I was hitting my wedges fat, and there was a lot of sand in the grass. And then I moved over to the short game area and I was hitting wedges like I normally do. Any idea why that might be?
So when you're making full swings, you are hitting the wedges fat. And when you're hitting short shots, you're not hitting it fat. Now, this is another question that we get to. What's the definition of fat? So my assumption is that it's not necessarily digging deep as much as it's going to be club before ground. Is that a fair?
I was hitting deeper divots than I normally do on the sandy range.
Okay, deeper divots.
Player.
Okay, all right. So now we got a little bit of different things. So that's the fat. So in deeper divots, what does that mean? What that means is that you're losing the width when you're hitting your fuller shots. So when you're hitting the short shots here, you're probably letting this club swing along the ground, which is terrific. But when you're hitting a wedge shot, you're not really getting, particularly, and I see this happen a lot of times with partial shots. A lot of times partial shots, people are you just don't use your body. And so what I like to feel is that the chest and the arms and hands are going to kind of move away together. And then that's going to give you some width. Now, if I go like this, look at the trail arm here and how it's still very structured. It hasn't bent. I haven't lost any of the space between my chest and my hand because my arm hasn't bent. So if I take this club back and I go here, now all of a sudden, pretty good. I've got good width. So I put this other hand on here and I make a swing, and now the club starts to move along the ground. What happens to us a lot is we start to get fearful of this sandy thing. I got to strike this really solidly or I'm not going to hit it. Here's what you need to do. When you have, like, this is another specialty shot. When you have that sort of soft ground on the golf ball, maybe it's not sand, maybe it's just damp. Move the ball back in your stance. Move it back in your stance like this. Keep your hands forward. Move it like that. We're still going to have width, but now what's going to happen is your low point's going to be farther forward. You're going to hit it like a groove or two low. The ball's going to go the distance that you want. And more importantly, your low point's going to be in front of the golf ball, or at least at the golf ball. And when that happens, you're going to strike the ball first. So keep that width up and don't be afraid to move the ball back in your stance. Okay, Corey? And by the way, I saw that email that you sent this morning. I love the picture. He sent a picture, Greg. I don't know if you saw it, with the New Breed of Golf shirt on, which was great, looked great on you. And that green color was fantastic. So Corey, thanks for sending that along. And thanks for always listening to the show. Corey's one of those guys. I get an email from Corey at least once a week. He's an avid listener to the show. We appreciate it so much. So thank you. All right, next one.
Was a great picture. All right, this one's from John. Michael, I wear, and this has to do with Jake's swing that we were looking at earlier.
Okay.
I wear progressive lenses. To see the ball clearly, I have to tilt my head downward. That produces tension, like you pointed out. Is there anything I can do to remain taller and see the ball clearly?
This is going to, I would love to tell you that I knew what the word progressive meant in progressive lenses, but does that mean you've got distance glasses as well as reading glasses?
Yeah, I'm thinking bifocals.
Yeah, I think we've got the two, like
so
up and bottom. Yeah,
right.
That's what I think we have.
So he's got to look through the top of that.
That's right.
lens.
And so, I mean, this is obviously, this is going to sound very simple. It's obviously simple. And that is, you got to just get a pair of glasses that don't have the reading glasses on them when you're playing. I mean, I hate to say it, and get somebody else to keep score. Because what's happening is that you're stuffing, like the game means a lot to you. And so you stand over this and you just have to adjust your head so you can look through the glasses. Just get the whole glass being for distance. Don't worry about the reading stuff right now. If you got to read, ask somebody else to write the scores down. And it sounds silly and it sounds so simple, but it is so simple. Get yourself another pair of glasses, okay? And we'll pass the hat if we have to. All right, go ahead.
All right, this is from Brandon. Can you talk about the best way to hit a chip shot when you miss a green on the short side, but the ball's above the hole and the green is running downhill?
Okay. So we're hitting a chip shot. We're afraid it's going to get away from us. So how do we do that? We're going to take our most lofted club. We're going to grip it like a putter, right? So we go like this. We're going to hit it on the toe. And now what happens is you hit this incredibly soft shot. That ball right there launched at 31 degrees. 31 degrees. And so that's kind of up there for a chip shot. High loft, and then a very soft strike because I hit it out on the toe. Spin rate wasn't enormous, and you're not going to get a lot of spin when you're hitting a soft little chip shot. What you have to do at that point is you have to have a ball that has a little bit of trajectory to it, not a tremendous amount, but a little bit of trajectory to it, but it's soft. And the softness, the launch, and the strike allows you to get maximum spin because you're taking the club face and you're moving it a little faster. And then the other thing, if you need even more, is just open it up. So you open it up, set it out on the toe, put a little loft on there, make the same putting stroke, and you're going to be fine. And the truth of the matter is, and again, just me, but you can't get there. And I know it's simple to say, well, I don't want to be there. I know, but you can't get there. You can't let yourself get there. There just be no getting there. Okay. When you get there, and it can happen sometimes, just you can't get there. The other thing that I would say is this, and this is one of the most important things that you can do, and it just dawns on me now. What I see happen with you is, and I'm not talking about this particular question, I'm saying you as a whole, you stand over a shot. Let's say it's a chip shot. It's downhill. You stand over the shot. You hit the shot. It's clear that that's going to go past the hole. And once it's past the hole, you immediately walk away and you start complaining about blah, 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 it's so difficult. I can't believe it. Watch the ball finish. Watch the ball completely roll out. Because when it goes past the hole, it's going to tell you maybe not how much, but which way the ball's going to break. So if I hit a shot and it's going downhill, and I do this with my wife all the time, I say to her, sweetheart, keep watching, keep watching, keep watching, because that, and by the way, I always start with sweetheart, that ball is going to keep rolling out and it's going to tell you what it's going to do as it goes past the hole. And I don't care if it's 2 feet past the hole or 12 feet past the hole. You got to keep watching all the way. And it's going to tell you kind of what it's going to do. It's not going to be the same amount of break because the speed of the ball coming back up the hill is going to be faster than the speed going down the hill. So there'll be less break coming up the hill, but it's not going to break. It's not going to break to the left side going down and then break to the left side coming back up. If it goes to the left going down, it's going to go to the right coming back up. And so what you have to understand is it's telling you what it's going to do. Keep watching it. So when you have that downhill shot, watch it all the way. It's a hard one. It's going to get past it. Watch it all the way. Okay? Okay. Go ahead.
This is a quick follow-up on that. I'm not sure if it's any different from Anthony. What about a pitch short-sided 8 or 9 feet above the hole?
So this is so what I like to do when I'm hitting a little pitch shot is I like to do a couple different things. This is a little bit different. Okay. So what you got to do is you have to, and this is a specialty shot. You have to increase the speed of the club head, but you have to steal collision. Hard one to understand. So we would think that if I'm traveling at 20 miles an hour and I hit this thing, that I'm going to get 20 miles an hour of force into my other hand. But if you take the collision and you get 20 miles an hour of speed here, but you offset it going this way, you're not putting 20 miles an hour of club head speed or impact into the object. So when I get in here and I swing this club, if I alter the collision, so in a down the line view, and maybe a 7 would be great. When I take the club, instead of sending the club down the line this way, I send the club over to this side. What's going to happen now is I can swing harder. The ball will get greater spin, but it will not go faster. So I get in here like this. I pull it over to the left-hand side, and what I get there is I get a lot of speed in the collision. I get a lot of trajectory, 42.2 in that launch, but the ball doesn't roll very far. And by the way, when you notice, that didn't have an inordinate amount of spin. It only had 4,000 RPMs of spin. But what happened was I was able to put maximum speed into this so that thing only carried about 20 feet. Not far. But it didn't roll out very far because I had both spin and I had trajectory. That launch at 42, when I'm taking this thing and I'm peeling this over to the left-hand side, I'm stealing energy transfer. So I can get maximum spin, maximum trajectory, soft shot. What you also notice, if you go back to that thing, Gibbsy, is my horizontal launch right there was 0.0, even though my club face was wide open, even though I swung dramatically to the left-hand side, it didn't start dramatically to the left. In fact, it started right at the target, 0.0. So open that club face. And by the way, in a face-on view, this is going to be one of those where it looks like the shaft is leaning backward, but it's not really leaning backward. It's just I've shifted my alignment over this way. Gibbsy, I don't know if you could take a 4, bring a 4 into me, just swing it right over and then back it out. Right. Now drop it. Yeah, there you go. Good. Now, when I get set up like this, you can see that the shaft of the golf club is leaning forward just a tad. Now, go to the 2 shot, and it looks like the shaft is leaning backward and the ball is way forward. Go back to 4. There it is. Now go, yeah, you zoomed in on that. There you go. And now we go there, and now we go over there. You can see how the shaft is leaning backwards, leaning in a different direction. So your point of view is going to be altered. Like somebody looks at you and go, God, that shaft's leaning backward. Well, no, you're just standing at a different angle because I'm just going over here. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just swing over to this side, and that club is just going to track right underneath. The ball will come out very soft. It'll have as much spin as you can put on it in a very, very short shot. But what it will have is a higher launch angle, and it'll have that softness. Okay. All right. Go ahead, Greg.
This is from Steve. It looks like you're sliding the bounce along the ground, or similar to a bunker shot. Are you striking the ball first or the ground just before the ball?
It's a great eye. I am. That's what I was talking about with the airplane, right? With the airplane, I just want this thing moving along the ground. Am I striking the ground before I hit the ball, or am I striking the ball first? I would bet everything I own that I'm getting the ground before. But the problem is that the ground is not impeding the progress of the club. And what's more important is the leading edge isn't going down into the ground. So the bounce is creating a glide. The leading edge creates a dig. So if I come into this along the ground, but my leading edge or the toe is digging down, yeah, I'm going to hit it fat. But if I open up that club and it moves along the ground, now all of a sudden there's nothing impeding the progress of the club head. It moves along the ground and it slides right underneath it. And again, that one there spun at about 48, we'll call it 4,900. And the launch angle again is at about 42. The ball flew about 9 yards and rolled out to about 11. So not only 6 feet of rollout in that golf ball. Not a lot. But am I striking the ground? Yeah, I'm striking the ground before the ball. But it doesn't matter because what's happening is I don't have the leading edge. The leading edge, when I'm zipping along and the bounce is here, what I'm getting is the leading edge is above that ground. You see that right there? Just go zoom right in there. Don't worry about it. Look, we're family. Everybody gets it. So what you can see is the leading edge is well above the bounce. So the bounce is in the ground here. The leading edge still isn't in the ground, and it just goes right along. That's the way it moves, okay? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, this is from Lee. I use spray on my driver face to check face contact. With the ball teed very high, I still consistently strike below the sweet spot. Do you have any drills to help with more consistent sweet spot contact?
So, this is an interesting one because you're teeing the ball way up, but you're hitting down. I mean, you're not hitting down, you're hitting up. And so you're probably falling back out of it. So here's what I would suggest doing. You got to move. What you got to do is you got to move the low point a little bit more forward. The low point is happening too far behind the ball. And so the club now is moving in an upward direction and you hit it low on the face. So what I would do is I would feel like my zipper of my shirt is moving forward. So I would get in here like this and I would try to feel like I was getting the zipper of my shirt over my foot, my lead foot, before I got to the golf ball. It might feel like a sway, but what you're going to get is you're going to get a strike now that's going to be a little bit higher. Even with that ball teed up, it's going to be a little higher on the club face. You got to feel like instead of backing out of that, you got to feel like you're moving into that or along that towards the target. Okay? Interesting. By the way, if you do spray stuff on the face, don't pay attention to spin rates of the golf ball. Don't pay attention to how straight it'll go. It's not going to help you at all. Okay? All right, go ahead.
Okay, we're not exactly set up for this one, but let's see if we can still help Rick here.
Okay.
Tips on very long putts. I keep trying to hit them on the upswing and not dip my front shoulder, but I can't seem to fix it. Plus, is there any wrist hinge required for very long putts? And then he follows up. I keep bouncing them, pinching them.
Okay. It's a lot. There's a lot going on in that question. So, one, is there wrist hinge? There probably is. Depends how long, I guess the question would be, what's the definition of a very long putt? Is a very long putt 35 feet? Is a very long putt 50 or 60 feet? And the answer is if it's a very, very long putt, then what I would say is that like 60 feet, you're going to have some wrist hinge. You have to have some wrist hinge. Okay. So what happens is this. What I like to see happen is don't worry so much about the wrist hinge. What I like to see happen is focus on the contact. And when I say contact, I know you're thinking, well, I keep hitting up on it too much. I think that's because your shoulders are seesawing. So when you start to take your shoulders and seesaw like this, you go down and up. Look at how much my head moves back. So now if my head's moving back, so we go here. When I move back, now it forces the putter head to move up into the air and you miss the strike. So what I like to see is, and again, this is just a practice. What I want you to do is when you come through, I want you to feel like your right shoulder is going to move, or your trail shoulder is going to move along the ground. So it stays very level to the ground. It probably won't do what it will feel like you're doing. But for you, if you're seesawing, it's going to feel like you are literally moving your head but do it. So you get in here like this, let your head, and by the way, don't be afraid to let your knees move, because when you're making a big stroke, your hips are pivoting a little bit. Your knees are going to move a little bit. So don't be afraid. Just let it be. What we want to do is we want to feel like our head is staying a little bit more steady, and it's particularly not falling away from the target. So we get in here like this, make a stroke, and let your head kind of chase out through. That trail shoulder is going to stay high and it's going to open. And then you're going to hit the ball in that fashion there. That one there, I hit about 60 yards. It went 60 feet. It went 20 yards. And so what you have to realize is if you are getting too much of a rise angle in the putter, so it's going too much like this, what ends up happening to you is that your head is falling back and away and the trail shoulder's going down. This is actually something that I struggled with for a little while in my putting. And it recently, like in the last 3 years, I started getting too much of the shoulder seesawing. And so I did a couple of things. One of them was I just started practicing and drilling left hand low. Because when you go left hand low, now all of a sudden what happens is there's a bit more drag here with the lead hand and the head stays kind of steady. Gibbsy, if you would take camera 5 and just give me like a close-up shot of shoulders here so that you can see he's working on it. There you go. Now, if I do seesaw, so the head goes way forward, so you can see right behind me this little thing that's right over here. There you go. So you can see that thing. I'm going to put that right in my head right there. Now, if I seesaw, I'm going to go in front and then in back. And that's a little exaggerated, but 60 feet here and there. And you see how much movement there is there. Now, when I go left hand low and I do this, look at how much less movement there is out of the head. So, and the reason why is that lead shoulder may go down and may go a little forward in the backswing. But when I go through, because there's a drag, my head doesn't move back away from the target. So now I get in here like this and I go, and now the head stays really, really steady. And when that head stays steady, I'm not moving around. Now, all of a sudden, what I'm going to get is I'm going to get a high impact point on the putter head, which is exactly what I want to try to get. And coincidentally, this is exactly what Rory was battling. He can sometimes get a little bit too much fallback with the head, a little bit too much of a rise angle coming out of that putter, and he'll hit it a little bit low on the putter, and it affects speed, particularly on longer putts. So experiment with practicing left hand low and experiment with keeping that head a little still, a little quieter. And I know it's going to help you. Okay.
So Rick followed up. He said, I'm hitting down on it. I feel my swing is too steep. So would you do some of the opposite things?
Hold on. So which one are we talking about here? We talking about the wedge?
No, this is the putting.
This is the putting.
Yeah.
So he's hitting too much down on it.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, I don't know. I don't know that I would define too much down. I don't know what a too much down is. I mean, I go back to years and years and years ago. I'm talking like into the 1800s and 1900s. Players, when they putted, used to putt like this. They had the ball back in their stance like they were hitting a chip shot, and they would go like this and pop the thing down like that. I don't know that you can hit too much down on it. Now, maybe you can. If I take this putter and I go like this, yeah, that's probably hitting too much down on it. But what I would say is that I don't mind hitting down on the putt, particularly on longer putts. What you could do to get a little less down is just move the ball position more forward. If I wanted to take hitting down and lessen it, I would just move the ball position a little bit more forward. So now it's sort of inside the heel and sort of it gives you come on up to a full one here because I want to, nope, you're not going to get it. There you go. So now it's more up here instead of here. So if I move that ball up there, now all of a sudden the putter will not be as down. So ball position can have effect on that. If I want to hit more down, I move it back. If I want to hit more up, I move it forward. And so I would mess around with ball position. But what I would say more than anything else is, in order for you to have consistency in what you're doing with your putting stroke, you've got to have consistency in what you're doing with your ball position. I remember going back, this is U.S. Open in 2015. This is the year before Danny Willett won the Masters. I believe that date is right? He won in 16.
Yep.
And I was at the U.S. Open in 15, and I believe that was at Pinehurst. And
14 was Pinehurst.
14 was
Chambers
Pinehurst.
Bay.
15 was Chambers Bay. So in 2014, he is sitting there working on putting, and I went up and I talked to him on the putting green about it. And this is what he did. He made sure on every single putting stroke that the golf ball was underneath his left eyeball. Now, it's not important that it's your left eyeball, your nose, your right eyeball. I don't care. It's the consistency of the ball position that's imperative, because that gives you predictability in distance. And if you're thinking about putting and putting better, and you're not thinking about speed control and distance control, ball speed, putter speed, you're not thinking about the right stuff. And that consistency of putting the ball in the exact same spot every single time is essential for your consistency and predictability in what's going on with the distance that the ball is going to travel. And so what I would say to you is, in this particular situation, if you feel like you're hitting down, move the ball forward. But for everybody, have a consistent ball position with the putter. And when you do that, you're going to start to have some consistency in what's going on. Okay?
This is from Jeff. Michael, I tend to be more accurate with my driver and mid irons than with my wedges. I struggle to hit greens inside of 120 yards. Any tips on hitting more greens with wedges?
Okay.
Misses left and right.
Misses are going left and right. Okay. So do me a favor, Greg. Give me a 120 here. No, you can stay on that range.
Okay.
Okay. Just give me a 120. So why would we miss with wedges? What are some of the things that are forcing us to miss a wedge shot? Well, one of them is simply alignment. And it's not sexy, but it's simply alignment. So if we go into a 3 shot here, Gibbsy, just give me a 3 and back it out. What I always do on all my shots is I always start in a down the line space. And what I always do is, look, Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods did this. Now you might argue who's better. What you're not going to argue is those are probably 2 of the best that ever lived. And they both had an intermediate target. Like, okay, this is what they do. This is what you ought to do. So, and I'll use my poker chip ball marker and put it down here like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my intermediate target. And now when I get in here, I'm going to make sure that my club face is pointing right to that target. My feet are relatively parallel to that line. My shoulders are as well. And now I'm looking up at this. How far do I have here, Greg?
120.
120. So now I'm going to hit my shot. And I didn't hit that absolutely the way I wanted to, but it didn't miss left or right. It didn't go the distance that I want, but it didn't miss left or right. And the reason why is because I'm hitting it over that target. So I took a target that was 120 yards away from me and I put it to 3 feet. So I get in here and all I do is just practice hitting this over that target. There it is again, over the target. This one's a little bit better distance, but still at my flag. And so the first place I start with is alignment, always pre-swing before in-swing. This is one of the differences between what you do. When you lose your game, you look at your golf swing. When I lose my game, I look at my pre-swing. Is my alignment okay? Is my ball position off? Where's my weight distribution? All the stuff before I put the club into motion. And so what I would tell you is first start with an intermediate target. And when you get an intermediate target, now all of a sudden what's going to happen is now you got trust. All I got to do is just hit it over that. Okay, I'll just hit it over that. With a wedge, you're not going to get a lot of curve. So I'm not going to stand here. I'm going to try to hit a hook here. Okay, I'll try to hit a hook. So this is going to be a 120-yard shot. I'm going to purposely try to hook this thing. So there's my hook. That ball, hey, Greg, that ended up pretty good. Can you put a trace on that? Just pull up a trace on this shot. Watch what happens here as this trace pops up. And what you're going to see is, so there you go. Just put the last trace down because I think it's got, so there's the trace. Is that a lot of hook? No, it's not a lot of hook. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit a slice. Literally, I'm going to slice this ball. Like 6-iron slice, this thing would go off the globe. Here's pitching wedge slice. So there's pitching wedge slice. Now watch this. I lost a lot of distance on the slice. That's the amount of curve. It's not a tremendous amount of curve. So when you're missing left and right, most oftentimes it's not based on the amount of curve. It's based on the start line. And start line to me always happens with address alignment. That's it. Get yourself lined up properly and then trust what you're doing with your motion. And so that's the first thing that I would tell you. Second thing I would tell you is that you might pull it. Most people don't push wedges. They pull wedges. So now why would you pull wedges? Okay, now we can deal with the golf swing. So why we would pull wedges is this. In the down the line view, we tend to bend over a little too much. If I bend over a little too much, I steal freedom and rotation in my body. And when I steal freedom and rotation in my body, I tend to throw the club or slam the club into the ground. This could be another reason why people would hit it fat. So you get in here like this. There's not a lot of turn going back. So I lift the club up and I throw it down into the ground like that. And all of a sudden, I hit a shot that misses on a pull side. Now, how do I solve the problem? Same thing. You got to have body rotation. You got to have your chest moving. Your hips have to move. They don't have to move a ton, but they got to rotate. And so the reason why they wouldn't rotate is, again, back to posture. I'm bent over too much. So we make sure that our balance is pretty good here. We've got our intermediate target. And now what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that we make a nice turn. So we're going to turn and turn. And all of a sudden you make a couple of good turns. And the next thing you know, you're hitting a golf shot from 120 that's going to end up at about 6 feet. Not only is it not going to miss the green, but you're going to have a chance to make a putt. So understand this. Aim. Where am I going? Use an intermediate target. Great idea for all clubs. Use the intermediate target. Then make sure that you're aware of what you're doing with your address position. Don't bend over too much. Remember, Jake was bent over a little too much and it got him into some trouble. So take some of that bend out, add a little bit, maybe a little more knee flex, sink your hips, stand a little taller, and then you're going to get some freedom of rotation. And then third, you got to get rotation. Hip has to move, trail shoulder has to move, all this stuff has to get back here. When you do all that, you're going to hit a very predictable shot. It may have a little curve to the left. It may have a little curve to the right, but it's not going to be enormous, and it certainly isn't going to force you to miss the green. And the final thing is this, and this is an important thing to understand. When you're hitting shots into greens with a wedge, you never think about playing away from a flag. And what I will tell you is this: always aim 10, 15 feet to the wide side of the flag with a pitching wedge or less. Is it fun? Maybe, because you're going to make some more birdies. But aim away from the golf flag. If the flag is right, aim 10 feet left. If the flag is left, aim 10 feet right. Play wide side. And so when you play wide side, you pay attention to where you're aiming. So not at the flag, but to the left or to the right based on wide side. Do the alteration to the posture and make that body motion. You're not going to miss a lot of greens with a pitching wedge. You'll miss some, but you won't miss with frequency. Okay? All right. Time for, do we have time for one more question?
We could do one more.
Okay.
Leo wants to know, he says, bunker shots, please.
Bunker shots. Okay. All right. This will be a fun way to end here. The one thing that you need to understand, and I don't remember who was the individual that asked the question. Looks like you're hitting bunker shots in here when you're doing this. Was that Leo or somebody else?
No, it wasn't Leo. It was Steve.
Okay. So there's a couple of things that you need to do to be successful in a bunker. One, you have to assess the sand. Is there a lot? Is there not a lot? And there can be not a lot in a bunker that has a lot. And there can be, and the reason for that is that depending upon raking jobs or where the ball is towards the edge of a bunker or in the middle of the bunker. So you gotta assess. And if you think there's a lot, then you open up the club face. And if you don't think there's a lot, then you close the club face a little bit. I always like to feel like the club face is somewhat open. It's never dead square for me. It's somewhat open. And the more sand, the more open it is. So that's the first thing that I like to pay attention to. Second thing is this, down the line, if we could, Gibbsy. I think one of the most important things that you can do to be a good bunker player is understand handle heights. So when I want to hit a bunker shot, I want a low handle. That allows me to open up the club face a little bit, but I want a low handle. And so when we start hitting low-handled shots like this, now the club can kind of glide along the ground there. And you can practice bunker shots, by the way, when you're on a range. You don't need to be in a bunker to practice bunker shots, because you have to understand the swing of it. And the first thing to me, again, I go back to this, and you'll hear this if you've watched any of my shows that I've done when I was working with Golf Channel on the Golf Fix. It's the same thing: pre-swing, pre-swing, and then in-swing. So what am I doing before the club goes into motion? So open the club face, depending upon the sand, add knee flex so that I can get a little bit of a lower handle. And when I get a lower handle, what I'm going to get is I'm going to get a little bit of cup in that wrist, that lead wrist. And then I'm just going to embrace that little cup in the wrist. So I get in here like that. Then I'm going to hit the shot. Now, the other thing that I want to do when I'm hitting bunker shots, and Gibbs, you don't need to follow those shots right now. You can stick with me on that. What I would say is this. What I like to feel is I like to feel this club moving along the sand. I don't want to feel the club digging down into the sand. I don't want to create a steep angle of attack. I want to create a wide angle of attack. Okay. As a rule, these are just standard shots. These are not specialty bunker shots. These are just standard shots. So what we're going to do is we're going to set the club face open. We're going to have the handle a little bit lower. Make sure that yeah, good shot there. And then when we swing this, I want to feel like I've got a little bit of width in this. So I'm going to feel like I'm going this way. I'm going to have some hinge, but I want my arms and hands to be wide. I don't want them to be narrow. So the club is going to hinge, but my hands are away. And then all of a sudden, it's just going to slide right along the ground there. And as you start to do that, don't worry about I'm 2 inches behind the ball or 1 inch behind the ball or 4 inches. Don't worry about that. You just want this club to be gliding along the ground. And if you have a steep angle of attack, now the precision and the entry point really becomes important. When you start moving it along the ground, you can be a little bit behind, and it's okay. You're still going to get a good shot. So pay attention to handle height, pay attention to the club face, and make sure that you've got some width and have some set in that, okay? All right, real quickly, just before we go, reminder, our blessed poker chip ball markers, $6 each. If you are interested, we don't have any more navy. Those are the only 5 colors that we've got there. Send an email to me at anewbreedofgolf@michaelbreed.com. Also, too, by the way, the pinned rangefinder. It's my new favorite product. Very easy to use. And honestly, in a market that it's hard to create a revolutionary thing, they've done it. There is no longer a battery. You just plug this in. It has a magnet on it, so it sticks right to the cart. And then when you get done, you charge this thing up. One charge is 65 rounds. One charge is 65 rounds. Of course, nobody's going to charge it every 65 rounds. But the point is, if you charge this thing every 20 rounds, you're never going to worry about running out of a battery. You're never going to be in that situation where, hey, boom, all of a sudden my battery doesn't work. Hey, Greg, can I borrow your rangefinder? What? No. You're out of trouble. I'm playing against you. Go figure it out. Now you're stomping around 38, 39, 40, and you're counting from sprinkler heads. No worries, no batteries. Go to Pinned Golf. They're on Instagram. They're on Twitter, obviously. Jump over there. We're giving you a $30 discount. Go to pinnedgolf.com. $30. Code is BREED, B-R-E-E-D. If you're interested if you're in the market for a great rangefinder, Pinned Golf is it, okay? And we obviously appreciate everybody at Pinned being a part of the stuff we're doing. We appreciate all the stuff that you guys have done to support us. Greg, Gibbsy, let's get a little face on of you two guys again so you guys can thank everybody, and hope everybody has, as I do, a wonderful Labor Day. There's Steve Gibbs on the left, Greg Ducharme on the right. And we appreciate all the things that you are doing and supporting us and watching all the stuff that we've got. Also, too, by the way, we've got a special coming up on, I believe it's on Saturday at 2:00.
That's right.
We have Course Record. and a really cool interview with Webb Simpson. That's tomorrow on CBS at 2 o'clock. It's 2 o'clock on Saturday with Webb Simpson, who is he's an assistant captain on the President's Cup team. We'll talk a little bit about the live situations. We're obviously going to talk a little President's Cup. There's a lot of things to get to in the world of golf, and you can join us over there on CBS at 2 Eastern. But for all of us here, I'm Michael Breed. Thank you so much for watching us. I hope everybody has a great Labor Day.